What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the Alto again, and this time we are here with Crispin of the Veer Union. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's an honor to have you here. Long time coming.
Thank you so much, man. It's my pleasure, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's incredible to have you here. Finally happening. So, first thing is always first. I got to get the usual promotional stuff out of the way. Welcome to Dystopia, the new Veer Union album, and just as every album that you've made, it is a true work of art and a true masterpiece.
Thank you.
When you go into the making of an album, do you go into it with sort of like a vision or a preconceived idea, or is it a very much throwing paint at the wall and sort of seeing what sticks songwriting process?
I think it can go both ways, to be honest with you. This one was actually a bit different. I feel like there's been a lot going on in the world, and I'll tread lightly on that. But there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, and I think that we wanted to do a conceptual album, and we wanted to kind of write about just how much the world has changed. When I think about when I was a kid, I was just like, if somebody would have told me that the world was going to the place that it is now when I was a kid, I would have been like, there's no way that that's going to happen. But here we are. And so it really felt like it was time to write Welcome to Dystopia. So it was definitely a conceptual album this time around, right from the very beginning.
Well, when you look at your whole catalog, because a lot of people say like, oh, is this how you always envisioned the band being? But let's be real. When you put out Time to Break the Spell in 2006, you were a completely different person then than you are now,
100%.
regardless of
Absolutely.
what difference the world is. So is this what you always envisioned the Veer Union being, or did you just kind of like have to not think about it? You sort of like focus on one album at a time?
Yeah, I definitely would say I focus on one album at a time. But I will say that it's interesting the way that you asked that question, because I feel like as every album goes, or every album that we do, I feel like we're closer and closer to what the original vision of the band ever was. I was actually thinking about this just before we got on this interview, and I was thinking, like, I was into all these post hard rock bands like Helmet and like bands that weren't even really that melody driven. But I remember I was like really listening to like Helmet, Tool, from the very beginning, all these really, really cool bands that I really loved. And now I feel like we're taking all these elements but I've always been a melody guy. Like when it comes to writing, melody has always been kind of like the thing for me. So now we're kind of getting some of that aggression that we always wanted. Earlier on, our stuff was a bit softer. Most bands don't go that way. Most bands go the opposite way.
Right.
They start really heavy and they get a lot softer. But I feel like, as time goes on, we're becoming more of the band that I always envisioned us to be, which is a little bit still melody driven, but more of that edge.
Well, I feel like the Veer Union, you're a rock band through and through 100%, but you definitely have room to like experiment. Like I remember to have like the way that you sort of re-envisioned Don't Take It Out of Me or Youth of Yesterday, how different it was from Time to Break the Spell to Against the Grain, and like how that sort of evolved over time. It seems like you're able to sort of genre bend and sort of like nitpick and take many different aspects of your sound, right? I don't expect you guys to sound like Obituary anytime soon.
Yeah,
but
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. No, but who knows? Who knows? I mean, I remember like the first band that really actually kind of got me into metal in general was Pantera. I remember listening to Vulgar Display of Power, and I was just like, oh, okay, there's something in here for me, But at the same time, it came from Led Zeppelin, and Led Zeppelin was kind of doing, they were considered a metal band, and they're very clearly a rock band who's now considered obviously a classic rock band. But so it's like as time goes on, we would probably be considered a metal band 15 years ago right now for how heavy we are. Although in this world, we're more of a alternative metal band is what they would probably put us in that genre. It's through my career, it just keeps changing.
Yeah.
But we just keep on going, this is what we want to do. This is how we feel, but they keep on changing our genres, which means that we're evolving, I suppose. So that's cool.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I still think that the experimental qualities is awesome. And I mean, look, there's people who I know that if I showed them your music, they would look at you like your devil music. Like they would think you guys are
Totally.
They wouldn't be able to tell you a different from like Watain or anything like that. But
yeah, totally.
So it's totally subjective. I want to ask this. I know we're talking about a new record, but I want to ask this question now before I forget. I know I'm asking this way too far in advance. We just entered 2025, but next year being Time to Break the Spell, 20 years. I mean, take me back to when I was 12 or 13 years old when that first record came out, and like, what was the sort of mindset? Because I know that you redid Over Me, you did redo Don't Take It Out on Me, renamed it to The Youth of Yesterday. So like, what was the sort of mindset behind Time to Break the Spell? And then when you went to Against the Grain, how did that sort of evolution come to fruition?
That's a great question. So at that period of time, before we were even called Veer, we were called, it's funny enough, there was a band, the band was called Union One. It was a lot of different members at that time, and everything became kind of crazy. And this is kind of how we got the name, the Veer Union, which was all this crap we were going through. We had all these labels that were interested in signing the band, and it was a different world at that time. And everything became about the money. And I was like, I just want to make music, man. I just want to make what I feel, put it and record it. That's it. And but the rest of the people in the band at that time, when we were Union One, were more like, well, we just want to make money. That's why we're here. So everything kind of came to a crashing halt. And my whole mindset was, I just want to do what I want to do. I want people to be like-minded. So I changed the name, got new members, and changed it to the Veer Union, because us as a union wanted to just create music because we loved it. And that's kind of where Time to Break the Spell came from. It's time to break away from everything that was going on. We just want to do the music. That's why the album is called Time to Break the Spell. At that current time, I was also I was living on Hastings Street in Vancouver, which is basically it is a very scary street. It's like everybody's, there's so much drugs on that street. You would be surprised if you were on that street and walking down it. You'd be like, this is Canada? Because it's just so poverty stricken. It's a terrible place. I was living on that. I never did drugs. Luckily, I don't know how I've been in this industry this long, but I never did drugs. But I looked around, and it was kind of inspiration for me to be like, if I don't get my shit together, basically, and do what I want to do, I'm going to potentially end up like these people. And so that's essentially where Time to Break Spell came from. It's just like, I got to get away from all this negativity. I got to get away from seeing what I'm seeing. And I got to get away from people that are just about the money. I need to do art because that's what I started doing this in the first place for.
Yeah. And I definitely see the passion in that. I think Another World Away was definitely, I would say, the most emotional song on that album. It has given me goosebumps. Falling Apart, I think, is like the most underrated song. And
thank you.
But when it came to Against the Grain, I also want to ask this before I forget, because I've listened to Over Me through my AirPods. I've listened to it on speakers. How is that mix where I hear it, the intro going in this ear, like I hear it going back and forth, that vocal intro? Did you mix that in a specific way? Because I haven't heard that with any other song I've listened to.
Oh, okay. It was so long ago. I'm trying to even remember. I think it might have been a mistake, if I'm to be honest with you, because at that earlier point in time in my life, I was re-recording songs that I had bits and pieces and ideas that we just kept on trying to evolve the production as time went on. And which version are you talking about? The Against the Grain version, or are you talking about the Time Rate? Okay.
Oh, I think both have that.
Oh, okay. So, I think that we just wanted to do some kind of cool panning idea. There's so many vocal parts going on at the time. We're like, well, to be able to hear the certain vocal part, to hear one of them, we're going to have to pan it back and forth to make it even work. So, again, at that, now I kind of feel like, well, that's a very normal effect to do. But back then it was like, wow, this is groundbreaking. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I heard that. I remember the first time I heard that, I thought there was something wrong with my headphones. But
oh, really?
It was so cool. Like, you literally feel it go inside your head and out that, like,
awesome.
Everybody watching this, listen to that song and break for like a listening experience. Or maybe I'm just insane. I don't know.
But that's awesome, man.
Circling back to your songwriting process, because I do think as a lyricist, you have a very thought-provoking lyric. When I listen to, like, The Final Moment, or like, Don't Take It Out on Me, You Are the Youth of Yesterday. Like, where do you need to hear the music before you could think of a lyrical idea? Or do you sometimes, because, with Welcome to Dystopia, you clearly have a vision. Do you sometimes have lyrics that could determine the music itself?
There's no question that for me it's subconscious, all of it. I pick up my guitar, I start playing something, I sing a melody, and 9 times out of 10, not every single time, but 9 times out of 10, I'll sing half of a lyric and be like, "That's what the song's about." I'll literally sing, you know, "Youth Yesterday," or I'll be kind of mumbling it, and then I'll listen back to my voice note, and I'll be like, "Oh." Oh, that's what the song's about. 9 times out of 10. Sorry, I just have to get rid of. Oh, there we go. Yeah, 9 times out of 10, it's subconscious, and this is where I spiritually as an artist, I'm like, we're a conduit to some degree, because if you just have to kind of catch those ideas as they're coming to you, and if you don't reach out to those ideas, they'll never come to fruition. So for me, when I pick up my guitar and I get in that headspace, all of a sudden I'll just be mumbling something and I'll listen back to my voice note and go, "That's what this song's about." I've told myself indirectly. It's really weird.
Depending on what the song is about, if it's more coming from an internal place or if it's coming from more like observation externally, does that maybe resonate with you differently, or do you channel a different energy into singing that song depending on what it's about?
I think you channel the energy depending on what you're feeling and depending on what the world is going through right at that moment, and I think that's why Welcome to Dystopia became the way that it was, because that's what I was channeling at that moment. That's what I was feeling like. What the hell is going on this planet right now? It's insane, and why are people not really, talking about it? And so for me, that's kind of what I felt was going on, and it's the same way with Time to Break the Spell or Against the Grain. I remember at that time, if I'm to be perfectly painfully honest, at that time when we did Against the Grain, a lot of people I remember there was 2 or 3 record companies that really loved what I was doing, and they were like, "Wow, your music's great." And then they found out that I was black, and they're just like, "Oh, that's going to be tough to market." And then we lost the deal. And I was like, "Is racism real?" Because I'm from Canada. Racism doesn't really actually exist here, if I'm to be perfectly painfully honest. These were all learning experiences for me, so that's kind of partly how the title Against the Grain is just like, well, okay, this is going to be harder than I thought. So I'm going to go against the grain. I don't care what people say, and I'm just going to do it because this is what I love doing. And, I grew up on Led Zeppelin, but at the same time, I grew up on R&B at the same time. So it's like, I love everything,
Yeah. Do you think that's where maybe also the idea for Divide the Black and Sky came in? I feel like that's almost kind of like a statement, like a response to that.
A little bit. But Divide the Black and Sky was really, this is I don't talk about this very often, but when we were signed to Universal and we put out Against the Grain, I remember they wanted to put out Youth Yesterday as the first single. And I said, "Don't do that. We need to put out something that's got some balls in it, something that's got some aggression." And I was way more into like new metal and like a lot of people were at that time. And so I was like, "Please, let's put out Seasons." Seasons came out. They didn't push it very hard, but then all of a sudden it started to blow up. And all of a sudden it was getting played on every radio station, across America and in a lot of parts of the rest of the world. And so they were like, "Oh, now you got to trust us. We know what to do now. We're going to put out Youth Yesterday." And if I was to be, again, perfectly honest, I'm like, Youth Yesterday is not the track. It's not, I'm proud of that track, but I didn't think it was going to be the song to blow up in America. And it wasn't. And they put a ton of money into it, and then we got dropped from Universal because of a decision they made.
Oh, that's.
But if they would, yeah. So, but the other part of that is we put out another song called "Darker Side of Me." I had to beg for that single.
That was my first Veer Union song.
Awesome. So we put out "Darker Side of Me." They put probably 1/20th the budget into the marketing of that song, and it sold far more than Youth Yesterday did. And even though that was the reality, they were still like, "Well, we're going to drop you." And I'm like, all because of the fact that you guys decided to, Youth Yesterday should have been on the album. I'm not upset about the song. It's just that I knew deep down inside that's not the track. Over Me was going to be the big track on that record, and we never even got to it. We needed to do Seasons, Darker Side of Me, Over Me, and then But here's the crazy thing, and I know we're kind of just talking about a lot of different things here. The interesting thing for me is now when I look back, if we would have done Over Me, I do think it probably would have done what Hinder did at the time, which is they had a Lips of an Angel and it blew up. And don't get me wrong, those guys are friends of mine and they've done very well. But I didn't want to be known for Over Me, and I think people wouldn't have taken the stuff that I'm doing now seriously if Over Me was our biggest song ever.
Over Me. So here's the thing. Youth of Yesterday, I love that song, but I could understand because I think it's a very artsy track, like the harmonies that it leads you in with, the atmosphere. It's a great song, but I feel like it is like very artsy. Like there's a lot to interpret. Over Me, that sounds like I could play that song like anywhere, and people will just assume, oh yeah, the band probably like it sounds like it would blow up. You know what I mean? It sounds sounds like a one-hit wonder song, if that makes sense.
Yes. So in some ways, it's like this is where I kind of go, oh well, I didn't see that coming, but but I'm kind of glad that Over Me wasn't our. I would probably be rich, but I wouldn't be making music probably because people would be like, play Over Me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And a lot. And I don't know if that's what I would want. So I'm grateful that I'm at this point in my career, almost 20 years after my first album, and I'm still making to what I think is the most relevant music that we've ever made in our career. So to me, that is so worth not ever being a one-hit wonder off of Over Me.
It's so funny. I saw, believe me when I say that this was a show I saw in 2022, but it was Drowning Pool and El Nino. And Drowning Pool, of course, what's the last song that they have to play? But like
let the bodies hit the floor, absolutely.
But of course, they made a joke about it. It's like humor. It goes, "You ready for that song? Well, too bad. You got to hear 3 new songs first."
Totally. Totally. Yes.
Yeah. And also with Divide the Blackened Sky, I remember because you were having people submit album cover ideas for it. I remember wanting to do it, but I was in high school still, and I had to study. So.
Oh, crazy. Well, to finish off that question, I know you've got another question here, but as far as Divide the Blackened Sky, it was a dark time. It was just a dark time. It's like I worked my whole entire life to get, to finally get the offer from Universal Records. Here we are, and then it all fell apart based on a decision they made, not me.
Yeah.
So that was like. All of a sudden, I'm sitting there. It's 2011, and I'm like, all of that happened, and now it's over, and I have to start all over again. And that's where Divide the Blackened Sky kind of came from. It's like, I just need the clouds to get away because I can't believe I'm here again, starting all over. It feels like but if I could be perfectly honest again, I don't know if that ever changes. You have to be happy in that moment, but also recognize the darkness of that happens in everyone's life. And I think that, again, that's why Welcome to Dystopia exists. I'm so happy that I'm still making music, and I'm so happy with the people that are in my life. But at the same time, it's like there's a lot of nasty, dark stuff that's happening in the world still today.
Yeah.
And so now I kind of look at it 2 different things. Yeah. That's my evolution personally.
Well, you just mentioned a word that led me perfectly into the next question. That is evolution, evolution, most overused album title, but
totally.
Do you believe evolution is something you can control? Do you dictate how you evolve as an artist, or does it just have to come naturally?
I think it's both. I think that if you have a thought in your head, the only way that it's going to come to fruition is if you actually follow through. So it's like, this idea comes into your head, but a lot of people talk about these ideas. I don't care. Take music out of the equation. Hey, man, I've got this business idea. Well, now it's just an idea. It's sitting there, but it's nothing until you actually do something about it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's the same thing with music. It's like, I've got the song idea. But that song idea will never live unless you actually, start working on how to get it to that point of being able to present it to the people.
But if you work on something for a long period of time, whether it would be like you said, presentation, editing it, I feel like your songs do capture a moment, but when you work on something for days or weeks, do you find it harder to sort of maintain the initial spark of the idea?
Um, Again, it goes both ways. Sometimes the best thing that you can possibly do is start on that idea and you got to finish it right now. Otherwise, you'll lose that moment. But then there's sometimes you'll work on an idea and be like, man, that verse is amazing. And the riff that goes into that it's exactly where I want it to be. And then the chorus comes in and you're like, I really wanted this chorus to feel uplifting and it just makes me feel nothing. And then 5 years later, you work on that same song and go, I've got the chorus for that song. So it goes both ways. I've experienced both because I've been doing this so long. I've experienced both ways. But I will say, most of the time, if you can try to harness getting from the beginning of the song to the end of the song in that moment, whether that's 5 minutes or whether it's 5 days, it's usually my favorite songs.
How do you know
it's that moment
How do you know when you're finished with a song?
when you run out of time?
You're not the first one. You're not the first one to give me that answer. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. I mean, at some point in time, you just have to kind of go, we need to put something out. And I'm like, I think it's 95% of the way there. And they're like, perfect. Everyone else thinks it's 100, so it's coming out now.
There you go. That's when you know it's going to get printed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When it comes to inspiration, do you seek out inspiration? Do you go looking for it, or do you kind of just let it strike you?
I think every single moment there's it's interesting. I go and hang out with people and I'll be like, did you see when that guy did this, blah blah blah, you might be in just a pub. And they're like, we have no idea what guy you're even talking about. At every moment in my life, this interview, I will grab something from it. It's you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like life is all about just like whether you're going to actually open your eyes and take something from it or not. Everybody's different, but for me, every experience is an experience that can be written about. Every single one.
Well, just don't forget me in the liner notes, please. When
Absolutely.
Yeah, I will be honored if I could have foreseen that in high school.
Awesome, man.
And just a couple more fun questions too. Like I know it's like very cliche to ask what are your inspirations, but you mentioned Pantera, you mentioned Led Zeppelin, you mentioned nu metal, you mentioned Hinder. I mean, you clearly have like a lot of inspirations that you've taken from all over the place. So did you just like kind of take snippets of different things to sort of form your sound, or were you not really thinking about that when just picking up the guitar and playing?
Definitely not thinking about it. I think the biggest thing is like when I pick up the guitar and I feel something, That's it. I don't know really how to explain it. There's times where I'll pick up the guitar and play something and be like, oh, I like that. It's really cool. And somebody else might be like, dude, that kind of reminds me of Born on the 4th of July from Soundgarden. Remember that song from way back then? I'd be like, yeah, dude, that's a great song. Whatever it might be. For me, maybe I'm just somewhere in my memory banks. Somehow I'm interpreting the song in my own way. I don't realize that it's happening, and I think that's what art's all about. And again, switching gears real quick, I think that's what Welcome to Dystopia is about, because I think that we're getting to this point in time where I think a lot of people, it's so easy for people that aren't really true artists to kind of just put anything out that they want. Anybody can kind of half-ass sing, and they just edit it and make it happen. And now the machines are writing songs. Now the art is being sucked out of the world, and it's a beautiful world that is being taken away from to some degree. Don't get me wrong. I do love evolution. I think we all need to evolve. But I just hope that art doesn't disappear fully and completely, because it's what makes everything special, you know?
Well, I can assure you, this is just my theory. Of course, I'm just a guy. I don't think that'll ever go away, because we as humans, I think what makes us distinct from other animals is that we have the ability to entertain ourselves in such a complex way that, like, I don't think art will ever go away. Who knows? We'll obviously digest it differently. We'll experiencing it differently. That's just how we grow. Like
Totally.
One of my favorite teachers, who's a fantastic writer, He said, like at a TED talk one time, when the book was first invented, there were definitely people saying, "Oh, if that's not carved in stone, I'm not going to read it. That's not legit." You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure when the electric guitar was first invented, they said that was not real because it's
totally.
not
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point, man. That's a good point.
Yeah,
Great point.
It's like the big argument now with AI art. Like, yes, there's an argument for it, but I remember when I may only be 31, but I do remember when Photoshop was becoming a thing, and people were saying the same thing about Photoshop that they were saying about AI. So,
that is true.
Yes,
that is true.
Yep, and the world is always going to evolve. The world is an artist of itself. So
absolutely,
and it's not going to listen to whatever the fans or haters want. It's just going to evolve the way it wants to. So,
couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So before we go, I want to thank you, not just for your time, but thank you for your music and being an inspiration for me and for just continuing to deliver music that inspires us, enlightens us, and deepens us. Just with the release of Welcome to Dystopia, what else could we be expecting from the Veer Union, if you're allowed to say at this very moment, of course?
Well, what I can say is that 2025 is probably going to be one of the most exciting years of our career. There's something big coming this year, and I can't say what it is right now.
You'll tell me when I turn the camera off, right?
But absolutely. I will, for sure. But yeah, no, we're really excited, and welcome to Dystopia. We're very proud of the album, and we're really excited the fact that people are receiving it, because it is a bit different than what we normally do. But there's some really exciting things coming in 2025. Not just new music, but other things that are coming.
I can't wait. I hope a New York City show is somewhere in there, because
I really hope that is happening as well. I can tell you that much.
Because you came to New York City, I believe, twice. You came here once with Alisana, right? I remember that day. I think everything was working against that show, because Behemoth was playing, Daughters was playing, Haken was playing, Unearthed was playing. Like, there was like 75 big shows happening that night.
That's right. And I think that we ended up having to move it to just where did we move it to?
You were at Kingsland.
Somewhere just at what's it called?
Kingsland.
What was it called? Yeah, that's right. That's right. Actually ended up being a really awesome show. Really hot and sweaty.
Yeah.
But it was an awesome show. But I think then we also played with Red.
Yes, and I wanted to go to that show too. I unfortunately was covering a show at Gramercy Theater that night, and I love Red, I love you guys, and I love Otherwise, who I know was on that bill too. So
Killer.
So that was a dream lineup that I missed. I was pissed off.
Wow. But we'll make it happen again in the future for sure. I guarantee that is going to happen. I love playing New York. So yeah, it's gonna be a crazy year, but I will tell you a couple of things once we're off camera. Unfortunately,
sounds good. Sorry guys, but thank you so much, everybody. We are here with the Veer Union. Check out Welcome to Dystopia if you haven't already, and we will see you next time on Heavy New York.
Thanks for having me, man.